Okay. And it's 7 o'clock, so we'll call the May 21st regular meeting of the Northport Village Council to order. Roll call show that trustees Ager, Cavendish, Cook, and President McCann are present, with Harper, Dean, and Rubel absent. I don't see Joe in the Zoom either. Item 2 is the approval of the agenda, amendments or additions. I'd like to table the item 10 closed session, the performance evaluation of the village manager. Full disclosure, I turned in my evaluation today, and Jared said that I was the second one he's received. So if the other council members could do their best, hopefully before our next work session meeting, to get those evaluations in so we could move forward with that, that would be appreciated. Also, is there any opposition to removing action item A, resolution Mill Pond Dam, from tonight's agenda, considering we only have 4 of our 7 members in attendance?
I don't know, but I think it makes sense to have everybody here for the final discussion.
Okay, so we'll remove action item A, resolution 2026-8, Mill Pond Millage Dam Millage from the agenda. Any other?
But I think if the situation happens to be the same next month, we should just move on.
Any other?
I'd just like to know too that there's a deadline for approving the ballot language so that you can passing the resolution so that you can have it on the November ballot.
When is that, Jared? You know,
July. I'd have to go double check the exact date, but I think as long as you had an approval at the June meeting, be fine.
Okay.
But you should double check that just to make sure, you know, if it went any further.
We, even if based on the date, maybe we could have it on the work session meeting if it's a matter of urgency.
Yeah, or have a special meeting or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other amendments to the agenda? All right, all in favor of the agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right. Item 3 is the consent agenda. This includes approval of the meeting minutes, staff reports, and payment of the bills.
I move the consent agenda.
Sorry. This was made by Susan, supported by Hugh, to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That brings us to our first public comments. Members of the public will have up to 5 minutes to address the village council. Please state your name and address for the record. And you can raise your hand or unmute yourself in Zoom to be recognized. Go ahead.
Howard, also known as Mike Cam, 625 South Shawosung Street, Northport. And I'm a long-term resident of Northport, and I'd like to provide some thoughts on the millage proposal. I know that we're not voting on it tonight, but I'll make my statements. The merits of both replacing the dam and removing the dam permanently, and have been well documented in the public. My comments have to relate directly to disclosure, and I really feel it's critical that the alternative that's been discussed, which is the removal of the dam, be included in the ballot language somehow. And so that we have 2 options: the dam replacement and also removing the dam permanently. And that we should publish the facts and the costs associated with each of these alternatives. And because I really feel it's important that the ballot fully disclose these items so that the voter has a clear view of what they're voting on. And there's some real questions in my mind right now as to how will the replacement dam be financed and at what cost. Having gone through the sanitary district project financing myself, in addressing both the council and the Leelanau County, the apparent issues of bad data really came to roost in that situation. So I would like to see that the replacement dam costs be done in detail, the capital cost of the new dam, including contingency and permitting. Financing, is it a bond issue? Is it a term loan? Does the county have to approve it? Now, under the sanitary district bond issue, financing, the village had to guarantee the loan, which was in the name of the county. And if that's an issue, it could impact the timing of the financing. Let's see. The dam removal proposal does not have any costs associated with it directly, that there are federal and state grants to pay for that. But I'd like to see the two alternatives put, in front of the voters. I think a vote is a great idea, and we should go with the, majority vote to which one of these, but I'd like to see it stacked together. Those are my comments.
Thanks, Mike. Any other public comments? Yeah, go ahead.
Dave Brigham, Mayola Township, 12750 North Keel Road. In a layperson's terms, we want our elections to be fair, and we hope that our voters are well informed or have an opportunity to be well informed. So, in other words than what Mike has spoken, to be fair to the voter, they need to know about the option. We know about it, but of the 570 voters in the village, I doubt there's more than 20% really know the particulars of this issue. And to be fair to them, they need to understand, as much as it's not on the ballot, there is an option. I don't know, need to go into particulars of that. But I've heard, I've been told that the council, should the millage fail, is going to take action to begin a process of applying for grants to remove and restore. I've heard that. There again, I think the voter should know that, and the voter that doesn't know what you and I know is going to go, okay, if it doesn't pass, so what? What's going to happen? Well, they need to know what's going to happen. And so if that's your intention, I think that should be just to be fair to the voter. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, go ahead.
Rob Franzo, 7755 North Matheson Road, Lima Township. And what both Mike and Dave said is good. I think that Dave is specifically referring to the option of the free flow Northport Creek option, which there was a really good engineering report. Jared sent it to me. I am a degreed engineer from Machine Tech, electrical engineer, but we did study a lot of different things. And I've spoken to a few people about it as well. There's Tommy David, who is humble and says he's not an expert, but he's a docent. He's the voice of the creek, as far as that makes sense. But even though we live in Lehigh Township, we all take advantage of the resources here in the village. And I think it would be a beautiful restoration to bring back a free-flowing trout brook creek. It's not inexpensive, but as Mike said, there are grants. He's an expert in this area from what he just said, so I won't speak to that. But from my perspective, I think it's an investment looking forward 7 generations, if you will, towards the future. I know there's a lot of people that feel very strongly about the fishing of it. There's some alternatives that can be facilitated. Won't have the same, but it'll be new. It'll be new experiences. I don't think anything is lost by moving forward with putting it to the voters in a clear, articulated way of both options. There may be some legal considerations in the drafting of, the village language. I don't have a clue about that. But, there's certain considerations, but I'm sure that the village council will give it due consideration. I think it's really imperative that trust, transparency are established and maintained so that, if it were to fail, then people know what the option is. And I think it should be upfront. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Anyone else in person? Anyone in Zoom? Can unmute yourself for public comment if you'd like at this time. If there's no public comment from Zoom, then we'll move on with the agenda. Okay. All right, there's a second public comment at the end of the meeting.
I guess so.
Item 5 is correspondence. There was a number of correspondence in the meeting packet. Joanne Swanson, Vicky Slot regarding 7th Street. Joan Moore regarding the condition of Kitchen Road and R1 zoning of her property. Rick Gans, Vicky Slot, Dave Brigham regarding the mill pond and the millage. And Christy Fisher and Brian Hafner regarding an ST short-term rental permit. And Ted and Virginia Foley regarding the STR fees for application and renewal. Those are available for the public in the Dropbox. Anybody receive any other correspondence? All right, Planning Commission liaison report.
Yeah, so planning commission, we had 2 public hearings at the last meeting, both were for short-term rental. Those are special use permits that now you have to go through that process, if you want to have a short-term rental and it's new. And as long as you meet all of those parameters, and have outlined and shown the zoning administrator that you are meeting those, then they move forward. So those were both approved. I still think it's a very valuable step. It's not necessarily stopping short-term rentals, but it definitely causes them to slow down and be sure that they're following all of the things and steps that we would want to see followed, like that they have enough parking and things like that. So I think it's still really valuable. There's been public comments about it, but I feel that it's a good step, and though it doesn't apply retroactively, new ones now are having to do that, which is why we are having quite a few. I think you said you had more special use permits for STRs this year than you have land use.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, there's another one coming in June,
Yeah.
probably 2 more after that in July.
Oh.
I think we've had a total of 4 land use permits so far this year. We're on like 6 or 7 special use permits.
So that took a fair amount of the meeting. And then we had our master plan they sought bids for consultants and have those back, and that the planning commission is recommending moving forward on. So I believe that's coming up in a work session probably for us to discuss, or just in the budget.
We're talking about having Jane and I, the chair, we just talked to the consultant. They got us a revised proposal based on what the planning commission feedback was, to go to the planning commission again before we can incorporate it in the budget, bring it back through that.
So there were some aspects in the estimate, just for explanation, there were some in the estimate that they gave us that a bunch of the commissioners felt may not be necessary, because we've done a lot of the work already. And it's just getting it over the finish line and working through and verifying and seeing what suggestions they may have to make it best it can be. And be the most reflective of community input. Then we also worked on the rezoning amendments for R2S, the Shoreline Residential District. And I feel like made a lot of progress on that and came to some final decisions. We've been working on that for several months. And then moving forward, commissioners are working to see what other aspects of zoning we may want to amend, because though we did just adopt that a little while ago, it's kind of a living document. So there's many more that as you work through it, or as Jared works through it, he discovers are things that we well,
Yeah.
bring some attention to.
AEDUs being top of the list.
Yep, and right now also adding some definitions, due to some of the things that are happening in Leland Township, and making sure that we have those in ours. Then we looked at a new draft for the public participation plan, which is a public document to help individuals understand the process of whatever permits or aspects they're working through. And we have one right now, but there's quite a bit in it that we don't feel is necessarily as accurate as it could be. And it's also a pretty lengthy document, and we are trying to make it a little bit shorter so it's easier to digest. So that's something we're continuing to work on. And hoping to have another version ready for next month's meeting, right? I believe. And master plan is still shooting for, there are changes to the schedule based on, but if we're able to work with the consultants, we're looking at early next year. Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
kind of what the time
Yeah.
is.
So it's a little bit of an adjustment, but part of that is because some of what they're gonna be looking at is to our surveys and different outreach and, things are now older. They're from 2024. And so that's some of it that we're trying to look at again too. So.
Would a limit on short-term rentals, a percentage limit originate with you guys, originate with the planning commission or the?
I mean, it absolutely wouldn't have to. I don't think so at all. I mean, the planning commission. I mean, is Jane in the meeting? I mean, she could speak to it too, but as the chair, but the planning commission referred and asked for a short-term rental task force a long time ago, and that just hasn't ever come to fruition. I don't think it's that the planning commission couldn't look at it, but most of what we would want to do, like the zoning, what could be done in zoning has been done as far as we're concerned at this point. And beyond that, it's kind of a village ordinance decision or things like that, which is council. And it's not that planning commission can't look at it again, but it definitely has before, and the result has been kind of consistently like, well, you can do, some communities have done this, but these are the problems they've encountered when they did that, like with a cap. Some have done overlay, these are the problems they encountered and the pushback they got, and this is the other option, and this is the pushback it gets. I mean, it's almost like whatever path you choose, there's definitely legal liability and concerns that might be associated with it. And so planning commission previously has always kind of said that's hard for them, the planning commission, to decide, because weighing which of those risks or priorities is the most important is challenging for just the administrative, planning commission to do, and maybe it's more of a council thing.
Either way, whether it was in the zoning ordinance or whether it was in the village's short-term rental ordinance, it would come through the village council for final approval.
Definitely.
I would suggest that it's those caps, where you see them, they're more often part of a standalone village ordinance rather than a zoning regulation.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Laura regarding the planning commission? Okay. That moves us on to item 7, which is our action items. We've got 4 resolutions we'll be voting on tonight. Village rules of procedure do require a roll call vote for resolutions. Starting with the resolution 2026-9 fee schedule.
I'll move to approve the resolution 2026-9 as presented.
One second.
Motion was made by Hugh, supported by Laura, to approve resolution 2026-9 as presented. Discussion?
Just have,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to add, because Will isn't here this evening, but he asked me about this specific issue to bring it to your attention.
Okay.
He thought that it might be a reasonable compromise, looking at the short-term rental registration fees, to charge $200 for a new registration, but to make that $100 for a renewal. I see where he's coming from. There is less involved in renewing registrations. It's a quicker process for me to review those, for any of us to review those. I would also say on the other side of it that there's more to the fee, and this kind of goes to some of the public comment and correspondence from Virginia that you saw. There's quite a bit more to administering the ordinance than just the registration forms. There's keeping track of existing legislation, research into STRs, how that impacts the housing market in general. There's a lot of inquiries that come through our office that don't necessarily end up as a registration. So there's more to it than just the form for each of these that comes through and whether or not it's approved and being renewed. But I do see where Will is going with that. I wanted to make sure I brought it to your attention. It seems like something at least worth your consideration.
Yeah, go ahead, you.
So do you feel that reducing it from 200 to 100 would cover your expenses on it? Plus your.
Yeah, and I don't have an exact number on that, but that does reduce it in half. Let's say you have 50 registrations for the year, 200 apiece is 10,000. Most of those are renewals. Maybe we get less than a handful, I would say. On a typical year, I think looking back over the past few years, you're typically looking at 2 to 3 short-term rentals. So if you look at those numbers, that's going from about 10,000 in annual revenue to about, let's say, 6,000, 5,000 to 6,000 in revenue. I think the 10,000 is an okay number, but I don't think that, I think that it's close. It's kind of hard to say too, depending on what's going on in a given year. There's no exact number for that. I think that you would be I think the village is totally justified in having a $200 fee. But giving those renewal registrations a bit of a break, I think that's understandable too. I wouldn't recommend necessarily either way.
Are we aware of any other local villages that have a two-tier short-term rental?
I have not looked through all of them, but if you'll notice the comps that I put in the table when we talked about this at the work session, none of the others that I looked at did. Oak Rapids, Frankfurt, I think Kentwater was the other one. But I'm sure it's out there.
Did you ever follow up with any of those communities about what was involved in their STR
No.
regulation? Okay. Not a big deal. Just saying, and I can see Will's point, and we can always start with this, and if it feels like there's more involved, we can always raise it.
Yeah, I just was gonna say, I feel like also, it is also covering your time to make sure that people are registering. And that there aren't unregistered properties, as well as if people have issues with an STR, the person they're going to call is us, and then we are going to have to deal with it. And I know that people paying aren't necessarily the ones who are doing that, but that is part of the cost too, is that there is going to be additional time involved to some degree for some of those extra things. One thing, I mean, I do understand Will's point, but we're also trying to be sure we're covering our labor fee and time spent. I do think because it's been at 0, maybe we could do new registrations or 2 and, renewals are 150 or 100 or whatever for this year so that people are, aware, and it's, it's kind of like with the marina rates, like they're going to go up to the higher level, but next year because we're letting people know. I just feel like that could be an option too, I guess, if people have concerns that they want to try that route.
Aren't all the STRs doing this new, this new permit? So
Because of the way that the timing of this for this calendar year, I've already received registrations for most of the operating STRs. I think I'm at 30 right now.
And they're paying 200?
they're paying nothing.
0.
Okay.
So there's 30 out of what I expect to be around 45 operating STRs that have already, they've already renewed their registration. So we can't go back and say, oh, now it's, now you pay. They've already finished registering. So it's more looking forward to 2027 for the most part.
So is there consensus to amend the resolution?
What are we amending it to?
I mean, I would just suggest that you could modify the motion for that specific item.
The fee schedule
If
is like
you-
200 for new and 100 for renewal.
Yeah. If you wanted to do that.
What's everybody think?
I still think that it shouldn't be a whole half. I mean, I do think that there's more involved than just processing it, because there's a good chance that they could need, that there could be other things that have to happen. And we're wanting to maintain and be sure that they're keeping an eye on how many are operating, are there ones operating without, and that if you are running an STR, that's part of what this needs to be for. I mean, most communities do not charge zero, and we've been doing that for a very long time.
I'm with Laura, I'd rather stick with 200 for everything.
Well, and I don't think I though don't think it necessarily has to be 200, but I definitely would prefer it's not just half, like that it's 150 or 125 or something, so that it's like a little bit closer to the actual amount, and then consider next year going, to everybody being that, but then at that point, I feel like you're gonna have more information too on how much you feel is the difference warranted? Is it not warranted? Could it be less? I don't know.
I will say, I mean, I understand, I don't want any fee to be punitive. I don't think that's the purpose of the fee. That's not how they're legally supposed to be structured.
Mhm.
At the same time, we do put a lot of work into STRs.
Yes.
There's a lot of interest and demand
Yeah,
for doing STRs in this village.
yeah.
So,
And we do want the STRs. It's not that we don't,
Sure,
because we
thanks a lot,
need the
Bob.
hotel space. So it's not that we don't need it at all. It's we need to find the balance. And if this can help us be sure we're covering the cost while doing that, that's good, because
There are weeks where I get a lot of inquiries, a lot of research into what's actually operating, whether or not it's allowed. Sometimes it's just routine. You'll see some of it that I put in my email every week. Some of it's just, I'm looking into buying this place. What are your rules? Some of it's research that I do into what's the new STR registration that's coming along. Research into how the how STR caps, for example, affect the real estate market and housing patterns. There's a lot more to it than just the registration. And I hate to be repetitive, but that $200 is a conservative estimate of the time that not only I have put into it, but our other staff has put into it over this past year. And I would expect something similar moving forward. So I don't feel like that $200 number is onerous.
well, and I also think that people, if you are someone who is living in the village of Northport and you are paying taxes and you are not operating an STR, I don't feel like a huge amount of your tax dollars should be going to cover the costs of him working on STRs when you're not operating any STRs. Now, I'm not saying that none should, because again, everybody is benefiting some. The business district is benefiting and all of these things. But I do think that we need to, do the best we can to be covering those costs, because the people who aren't operating any at all, which is the bigger majority, I don't think should be carrying a whole bunch of that.
Yeah, I would. My personal preference would be to just stick with what we agreed to at the last work session. I mean, we talked about this, the $200 came from what you thought was your time. And I feel like,
Staff's time too.
yeah, that's what I mean, the staff in general. I mean, it's just that, we're sort of trying to renegotiate after we had a fairly lengthy discussion about last time about why we weren't gonna charge 500 like Elk Rapids and Frankfurt, but we felt that 200, similar to what Sutton's Bay charges, would offset the cost of staff regulating and working on short-term rentals. So, my opinion would be to amend the fee schedule with the STRs at 200 and 200, and then if we feel like we could always amend it at a later date. Down.
Agree.
All question.
Any other discussion? Okay, and all the other fees look good. So a motion was made by Hugh, supported by Laura, to adopt resolution 2026-9 fee schedule as presented. Roll call, starting with Susan,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes,
you,
Yes,
and McCann, yes. Motion passes. All right, next up, we have our resolution, item C. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2026-10 as presented.
second,
Motion was made by McCann, supported by Cook. This to approve resolution 2026-10 as presented. This is the resolution terminating the Leelanau Community Energy Site Lease Agreements. We had discussion about this at the last meeting, and this is going to allow us to sort of move forward with, trying to get that tower down and get it cleaned up. Does anybody have any other discussion regarding the resolution? Okay. And the motion was made by McCann, supported by Cook, to approve resolution 2026-10 as presented. Roll call, starting with Laura,
yes,
you,
yes,
Susan,
Yes.
and yes. All right, motion passes. Item 10, no, item D, resolution 2026-11.
I move we approve resolution 2026-11 citing Sarah Egler as the citizen of the year.
I'll support.
Oh, good.
sorry, I thought you did already.
All right, motion was made by Susan, supported by Hugh, to approve resolution 2026-11, naming Sarah Eggert as Village of Northport Citizen of the Year. Any discussion?
I have some discussion. I support this. My discussion is based on some of the feedback we've had since last meeting. That I've had people share with me and some of the public comment, and that was how is this working? One of the things I did as a result of that is I looked at what other communities do for Citizen of the Year, and like what parameters do they have. And my daughter's in robotics, and there's like a coach of the year thing, and like how do they pick that? Anyway, so they have like a nominating process where people can submit, and there's like a form, that you fill out, and they have it on their website or print out, and people can do it all year up to that point. And then those are the ones that the president considers. And obviously for this year, we're going to continue the way we've been doing it. But I wondered if that might be a consideration for the future, so that it's not just like the people sitting here coming up with ideas, so that it's that, and so that there's something on paper that's comparable one to the other for you to look at and decide, instead of just what you happen to know. Anyway, I just thought that might be worth considering for next year, since some people were like, concerned about the fairness or the different process. And I feel like it might make it a little easier too on you, or whoever is president, because then you have, this is why we picked this person, and you're able to read and cite, not just based on your own knowledge.
Sure.
I think the what we got, the better off we'd be.
Yeah, so and I can share, I found 3 or 4 forums from different communities in Michigan. I didn't look in other states, but I'm sure other states are doing it too, but. Anyway.
Well, I think this worked well this year because we had one person nominated, and then as we discussed it, other names came up, and I thought that was excellent. And ultimately, I think we sort of voted casually, or we gave our suggestions to you.
Yeah.
And I think,
Passed them on.
yeah, so.
But I agree that,
Yeah,
I spoke to
be
Jared
fast.
about the process. It's like, well, there is no formal procedure.
Well, I think that would help too, because then
Sure.
it's like, do you live in the village? Can they live in the township? Like all those things could be like, these are what we've decided is the parameters now. And tell us what you've done. We know what we know, but
Sure.
what do you want to nominate them for? So.
All right, sounds good. Any other discussion? Okay, motion was made by Susan, supported by Hugh, to adopt resolution 2026-11, Citizen of the Year, Sarah Eggert. Roll call vote, starting with Susan.
Yes.
Hugh,
Yes, definitely.
Laura,
Yes.
and yes, motion passes. Item E. Where first. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2026-12 as presented.
Second.
Motion was made by McCann, supported by Laura. To approve resolution 2026-12, this rules of procedure amendment. This will be changing the work session meeting time to 4 p.m. on the second Thursday of the month. First Thursday of the month. Don't want to get that confused with the planning commission.
Yeah,
Second Wednesday.
Yeah.
yes.
Any discussion?
No, I think it's a good idea. It's gonna be easier for a lot of us.
Okay, so again, motion was made by McCann, supported by Laura to approve resolution 2026-12 rules of procedure amendment. Roll call vote, starting with Laura.
Yes.
You,
Yes,
Susan,
Yes.
and yes. Motion passes. That brings us to our second public comment of the evening. Once again, members of the public will have up to 5 minutes to address the council. And if you could state your name and address for the record, that would be appreciated. And you can either unmute yourself in Zoom or raise your hand in public, in person.
Chris, Barbara Weber, my camera doesn't work, so can't.
Yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
Barbara Weber, South Shore Drive. I'm addressing the dam removal. I call it option B. It's not been presented to the Northport Village. It is what Mike Can and David supported. The obsolete dam impoundment in Northport Creek would be the dam would be removed without any millage, and the financing would be done with the state and some federal help. The creek would be restored to its natural flow, supporting aquatic habitat for fisheries and wildlife. The algae problem in the impoundment, partially due to the number of ducks and the E. coli, that would be replaced with an active flowing stream. I know that the Sportsman's Club Derby is important to people. There is an option, and that is the Veronica Valley Kids Fishing Derby. It is a Leelanau County taxpayer park. The local fisheries, Heather Hedinger has indicated it's considered to be one of the better kids fishing derbies. They stock it with bluegill, not with hybrid fish, as they do in Northport Creek. The hybrid fish won't reproduce, they'll die. The bluegills live to be fished for at least a year. They also teach kids to fly fishing in another pond. And a number of private organizations support the fishing derby there. And I think the Sportsman's Club could proudly support that for the Northport kids as well. It is a already taxpayer funded park. Ty Wessel could help with that. And I really want the option B to appear on the ballot if you're putting the millage on the ballot. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. Anyone else for public comments? Yeah, Joanne?
Hi, everyone. I agree with Barbara. I think it would be good for the environment to allow the creek to return to its natural state. And I also agree that if you're putting a millage to support construction or renovation of the dam on the ballot, the other option should also be put on, because when you put a millage on the ballot, people will naturally think that the council is supportive of the millage, and that's usually the typical position. And so if you put one side on, I agree with Barbara that the other option should appear as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comments? All right, if there's no other takers for our second public comment, we'll move on to council comments. Any council comment?
Yeah, I do.
Sure.
I'm disagreeing with the people that have been saying this about the mill pond. I think it's been broadcast both sides enough that people are aware of both sides of this issue. Not necessarily just us approving rebuilding the dam. I think there's other options as far as taking it down, and they are aware of it. I don't know how can we put it on the ballot that way? There's two sides to this ballot.
Probably not.
I didn't think so.
That's not, I'm glad you're asking the question. I've been thinking about this with these comments this evening. There are very specific requirements for what can go on the ballot as a question. This question is specifically related to a millage. So you're limited. And I personally, in my experience in local government, I think it's very important to have legal review of that, because there are constitutional requirements and statutory requirements for how ballot language can be structured. And I think it's really important not to run afoul of any issues with those. I think what is coming up with these comments is more about, well, there's a difference between ballot questions specific to a millage as opposed to a survey, right? Trying to determine what public sentiment is. And that is not the purpose of a ballot question. So I understand where they're coming from, but I don't think the appropriate way to measure public sentiment in that respect is with the ballot question. They're different. And I would just put that out there. It's not really, that's not what a ballot is intended to do. To gauge public sentiment.
And I think you said, Jared, that it's wrong for the village or the council to come out in favor of the millage proposal or against the millage proposal.
That's very clearly.
That's very wrong.
The statute, yes.
So how do we let voters know that this is not, as Joanne said, this is not a typical village proposal that the village is 100% behind? And we want you to vote. I mean, how do we make that clear?
It's a great question, and especially when oftentimes, you have a select group of people who are interested, they are tuned in, they know what the council is talking about and what you're discussing and what the consequences might be for some of the actions that you're taking. But the general public is out enjoying the sunshine. They're with their kids, they're doing other things in life, and they aren't necessarily tuned in to the future of the dam and the pond. So how do we get that message out? How do you get that information out there? I think that's where there's a lot of public outreach that the village can do. It's talking to people, it's having, workshops or some kind of tailoring, finding a forum and tailoring a message for people, those kinds of things. And I'd be happy to get involved with that. Of course, understand that's time consuming. It means more meetings for people. And oftentimes people don't really want to do public meetings. So it's a constant challenge. It's a challenge I've had all the time that I've worked in local government, because there is a level of apathy, of not necessarily paying attention to what's going on. The working of local government can be boring to many people. So they don't get engaged. But can we find a way? I mean, we sure can try. Because I think it is important to have those discussions. This is what a ballot looks like. Here are the consequences. Here's an alternative. Here's what would happen if the ballot failed. You know, that's legitimate. Those are really good conversations to have. And there's a way that the village can provide that information factually, accurately, so it's not supporting a yes or a no vote. There's a way to do that.
I guess my comment was gonna be, one, in regards to some of the public comment earlier, is that, you know, how can we educate the community on the ballot issue of the village, and through, like we were saying, like a town hall type situation where someone could speak to the costs and a little bit more in depth. And so another point that was made is that, we're putting the millage on the ballot, but the council has, in my opinion, the council has not made a decision to remove or replace the dam. I mean, to Joanne's point, if the council had said, we want to replace the dam, now we move forward with millage language, that's a vote that hasn't been taken yet. And I think that this millage is sort of pseudo acting in that way. But does the community have an assurance that if the millage does fail, that we will take it out? Do you get what I'm trying to say? I guess that's just something I've been thinking about in the last 2 weeks as this has come up, and I knew it was going to be on the meeting for discussion tonight. But just that it's not that I wouldn't support the millage vote, but I just don't feel like the council has made a decision one way or the other whether we're going to replace it or take it out. So I guess that's just what's going on in my head, is that maybe it's just putting one before the other. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's.
No, I think you're right, but aren't we basing the information on the vote itself as far as what the public feels?
I guess that's where my only would be that, okay, so if it goes through, then we are going to vote to do it.
Well,
But if it doesn't, are there we could still say we still want to replace it, try to raise private funding. I'm just saying I'm not sure it really answers, the millage doesn't really answer the question of whether the council wants to replace or remove it. We're sort of leaving it up to public opinion, but at the same time, we don't necessarily need to adhere to that.
correct.
Is that, at some point,
Sure.
we will have to make the decision. So that's just what's been going on in my brain. Laura.
Yeah, no, I agree. I understand what you're saying, and I think that it's a valid point that if this millage is just to find a funding source to replace, then that's one thing. But if it's that there isn't an opinion one way or the other because we're waiting to see what the public vote is, can the public count? Like, are we going to say that is what we're doing, or once the vote goes, are people still going to be stuck where they are and they don't want to move if they want to save it, or they don't want to? I agree that, like, yeah.
Well, I've heard some people say that we're taking the coward's way out. We're not voting as a council. We're not taking leadership in our village to make a decision. We're kind of shoving it off onto the voters who may or may not be as well educated as we are on the options.
Well, to me, I feel like this is still a lot more to think about, and this is council comment. And we're gonna move it to what, the work session or the regular meeting again? I mean, I think we could do it in the work session again, maybe, and have further discussion again and decide if there's
You're
more.
right.
And this, like, kind of prods the discussion further and other aspects of it as well as potentially seeing if there is other suggestions or paths for the ballot language, because some of the commenters may have experience and think that if there are other ways that they could see that to be, I mean, I don't think anybody doesn't welcome that. So, I mean, if you want to send feedback in specifically, but I mean, everybody can continue working and looking and thinking on it based on the feedback to what solutions could we come up with.
All right.
I move we adjourn.
Would you, before you adjourn, I heard a suggestion to have this come back for discussion again at the work session. Is that? the consensus, or is that?
And I think that it could for sure.
Because
Especially because some of us are missing right now, and so like filling them in and making
Whatever.
sure everybody's on the same
Even
page.
one trustee, you can say, I wanna have a discussion item, I can put it on the agenda. Is that?
Yeah.
Something you wanna have on there? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fair, but on the flip side, we've been talking about this for 4 years.
We're really close to a resolution, at least on the village
Yep.
matter.
Okay, let's put it on the work session.
Yep, makes
So-
sense.
All right,
Yeah, move again that we.
It will be at 4 p.m. Correct?
Correct.
It'll be at 4 p.m.
4
So that does potentially give more people the opportunity to come to that meeting on Zoom or in person.
I support.
Okay.
All right, we're adjourned at 7:51.
So now I can make a comment. I wouldn't have done it before, but typically the governmental bodies don't take a stand as a body on ballot issues like that. And that full educational process typically